Welcome, and thanks for joining us for today's ASA webinar, Keeping Your Brain in Shape, the Importance of Proactive Brain Health, which is part of the Empowering Professionals in Aging series presented by Home Instead Incorporated, a franchisor of the Home Instead Network. I am Patrice Dickerson, Director of Programs and Thought Leadership here at ASA, and we'll be getting started shortly. The slides for today's presentation are available under the tab on your screen labeled Resources, and under the tab labeled CE Application here, you'll find information on how to obtain continuing education credit for this event today. You'll have 60 days to complete a continuing education application, and it will take approximately 30 days from the date of your application in order for ASA to process and issue your continuing education credit. If you are not logged in directly to this webinar, that is, if you're watching as a part of a group and you did not log in using an individual confirmation URL, you will not be eligible for continuing education credit because we have no way to track your online attendance. If you'd like to receive continuing education credit, please be sure you log in using a confirmation URL you received after individually registering. If you have questions during the presentation, we encourage you to send those at any time using the questions box, and we will save those for the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's program. And now let's get started by welcoming today's presenters. We have with us Lakelyn Hogan Eichenberger, PhD. Lakelyn serves as a gerontologist and caregiving advocate at the global headquarters of Home Instead. She began her career at the local Home Instead franchise in Omaha, Nebraska, working one-on-one with seniors and caregivers. Today at the Home Instead Global Headquarters, Lakelyn works to educate professionals in aging, families, and communities on the unique challenges older adults face and the resources available to help them thrive. She earned a PhD in gerontology from the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Joining Lakelyn, we have Jenny Munro, MA, who is also a gerontologist, and she's the response team manager for Home Instead's global headquarters. Jenny leads the Home Instead response team in helping family caregivers navigate the complexities of the elder care continuum. And she is a certified Alzheimer's journey coordinator through Camden College. Jenny and Lakelyn, welcome.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Patrice.
you.
Hello, everyone. Jenny, I'm excited to have you with me today. Hello to you, too.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited as well.
Well, today we're talking about an important topic that relates to all of us. So I know most of us are working with older adults in the aging space, but we ourselves need to be sure that we're taking care of our own brain health. So this information that we're going to share today not only will be helpful for the clients that you work with, the older adults you work with, but also you can apply this to yourselves in your own life on your own brain health journey. And as Patrice mentioned, myself and Jenny will be talking to you today about this important topic. You know, the brain is an organ that often doesn't get the attention it deserves. If you think about it, our brain is our body's command center. And as we age, we're at an increased risk for cognitive impairment. However, research is finding that there's much we can do proactively to keep our brain in shape as we age and reduce our risk of cognitive impairment later in life, reduce our risk of aging brain diseases. So today, being June 1st, is actually the first day of Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So June, we focus a lot on brain health and Alzheimer's awareness, and so we thought it was very fitting to talk about keeping our brains in shape. So I'm going to kick it off, and then in just a bit, I'll pass it to Jenny. I'm going to be covering the risks of cognitive impairment later in life and helping us all understand the importance of our brain health across the lifespan. I think sometimes we tend to think about, our cognition just in our older years because so many people are afraid of developing dementia or a type of cognitive impairment. But really, again, we're learning that there's so much we can do across the lifespan that can protect our brain health. And it really does focus around 5 pillars. And so I will pass it over to Jenny for that portion of the presentation to really dive into those 5 pillars of brain health. And then, of course, we want to leave you with some resources that can support your cognitive engagement and your brain health. So we know when it comes to the risk factors that age is the greatest risk factor for cognitive impairment. Again, if you ask older adults about kind of their fears of growing older, cognitive impairment, dementia, Alzheimer's, those are usually high on the list. And I want to pause, towards the beginning and clarify the definition of dementia. Dementia is cognitive impairment that is severe enough to impact daily life. And there are many types of dementia, Alzheimer's being the most common type. And I'm going to talk about the other types of dementia later on, but I still think that there's a lot of misconceptions around, what is cognitive impairment versus dementia versus Alzheimer's. And again, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, and there are, some experts say up to 100 different types of dementia. There's about 5 that we see most commonly, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. But we're seeing the number of people living with Alzheimer's disease growing. Today, more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and there has been significant advancements in diagnosis over the past decade. There are cutting-edge kind of diagnostics tests that are in clinical trials now, some becoming available to the public. There's PET neuroimaging for diagnostic. There's other biomarkers that are being studied. I'm headed next month in July to the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, and I love going to that conference because it's the latest and greatest in Alzheimer's research and science, and they usually unveil some of the latest findings. So I'm excited to attend that conference. And we really do see, again, Alzheimer's being very common. About every 65 seconds, someone in the U.S. develops Alzheimer's disease. At this point, there's no cure for dementia or for Alzheimer's. And it's the 6th leading cause of death amongst those age 65 and older. And if we look at, the various types of things that people could pass away from, Alzheimer's disease takes more lives than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So, we've really seen an increase in cancer treatments and diagnosis over, the last decade. There's been a lot of emphasis on finding cures for cancer. And so Alzheimer's kind of lags behind in terms of research a little bit, but we are learning so much more. We do see the number of deaths increase. Again, there's no cure for dementia at this point. There are some treatments for some of the symptoms of dementia, but without a cure or any kind of advanced treatments, the number of people projected to have Alzheimer's disease by the year 2050 is 13.8 million. You can see that on the chart here on the slide. And again, that's significant. So I know that there is great organizations like the Alzheimer's Association and Us Against Alzheimer's and various others that are advocating for more money to be allocated to research to help us find a cure and more resources and support for those living with the disease today. So often I get asked, what causes cognitive decline, or what causes somebody to get Alzheimer's disease and dementia? And while we know, a general decline in cognition does occur as we get older, but often that normal cognitive decline does not interfere with our daily life. And so when it starts to interfere with our daily life, impact our ability to care for ourselves or to do household activities, that's when it's really time to get a diagnosis. If there's a pattern to these types of cognitive issues, we want to make sure that people are getting to their healthcare provider. And the Alzheimer's Association does a great article on their website on the 10 signs of Alzheimer's disease. So it's important that we all kind of learn those 10 signs so that we can recognize it in those that we work with and those that we love and care for in our lives. But research is starting to understand there are certain risk factors that can increase our chances of developing Alzheimer's or dementia or cognitive decline later in life. But these things don't necessarily guarantee that we will get it. So our genetics could play a factor. You've probably heard of the ApoE4 gene that, people with that gene have a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, but they won't be guaranteed to develop Alzheimer's disease. There's a few other very, very rare genes that have a high risk of Alzheimer's disease, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean that a person is guaranteed to. So it is kind of controversial, the 23andMe gene testing. I often hear the debate, would you want to know if you have the gene or not? And perhaps you would want to know because you could engage in these lifestyle factors to help reduce your risk in other areas. We do see environmental influences, our education, socioeconomic status, our occupational complexity, our leisure activities, including social participation, our lung function, smoking, exercise, environmental exposures such as pesticides. These are all things that researchers are looking into to see, do these things increase the risk of cognitive impairment? And then finally, what we're going to dive in deepest on for this webinar is our health and our lifestyle can impact our risk. And we'll get to more information on that in just a bit. But I mentioned that it's important to understand our brain health across the lifespan because research is starting to uncover that, the damage in the brain caused by Alzheimer's disease starts to develop decades before a person starts to exhibit the symptoms. So, for example, if somebody started to have symptoms of Alzheimer's or dementia in their 60s, they might have started to actually develop this damage in their brain as early as their 40s. And so the more we can take care of our brain health across our lifespan, the better off hopefully we will be in reducing our risk for cognitive impairment later in life. And sometimes it's helpful to kind of talk about normal versus abnormal brain aging to kind of understand, okay, in what if I'm witnessing something in my loved one, is that normal or is that abnormal? So normal age-associated cognitive decline is generally subtle and can impact a person's speed of thinking, their attention control. Multitasking might become a little more difficult as we age. For example, if you've ever gotten up from the couch and walked into another room and found yourself thinking, oh my goodness, what did I come in here for? Or you go out to the parking lot and you temporarily forget, where did I park? Often, that's normal. As long as we can kind of retrace our steps and eventually remember, oh yeah, I parked by that light post, or, oh yeah, I came into the kitchen to get batteries or something of that sort. If we can retrace our steps, that's normal. But it's when that forgetfulness becomes such that a person can no longer remember where they placed their keys. They can't retrace their steps. They're getting lost on their drive home. It's those kinds of things that become abnormal brain aging and are cause for concern and need to be brought to the attention of a medical professional. We know that abnormal brain aging is not universal, nor is it inevitable. So sometimes people think, well, developing dementia is just part of getting older, right? And I say, no. It is not a normal part of aging. We need to debunk that myth. It is the result of a disease in the brain. And on the slide, you can see an image of a healthy brain on the left versus a brain with Alzheimer's disease on the right. And you can see the physical size of the brain shrinks for those living with Alzheimer's disease. The ventricles become enlarged. There's a decrease, a thinning of the white matter. And so you can tell, upon autopsy, if a person had Alzheimer's disease, their brain is going to be actually smaller. And then if you kind of zoom into more of the cellular level, the nuclear level, you'll see that in a person living with Alzheimer's disease, they have these plaques and tangles that tend to develop in the brain that block the kind of communication channels between neurons. And that can cause cell damage or neuron damage and the death of those neurons. So the person's brain is changing, and that's why you start to see those dementia-related behaviors. You start to see a person have a reduced ability to solve common problems. They might have difficulty communicating or expressing themselves in conversation, substituting a word for another word, like they're trying to say table, but they say stove. Or I've noticed if one of my loved ones, when they can't think of the word, they'll kind of substitute it, like, let's set these forks on the place where we eat, instead of saying set on the table, those kinds of things. If they start behaving outside of social norms or behaving uncharacteristically, it might be a sign of somebody that is experiencing cognitive decline. I was just reading a story about frontal temporal dementia. That's one of the types of dementia. And often that first sign is impaired judgment and changes in mood and personality. And sometimes people mistake that for depression or, thinking that somebody's doing it on purpose. And it's really the result of damage being done to the brain. Another symptom of cognitive decline might be impacts to the motor system, resulting in excessive trips or falls or even causing tremors. These changes in the brain at the very kind of nuclear cellular level, those plaques and tangles, they might start to develop, decades before we start to see these symptoms. And again, that's why it's important to focus on our brain health. And I did just want to briefly touch on these aging brain diseases that we see commonly in the aging population, but again, it's not a normal part of aging. And for some people, the diagnosis journey can be quite long. Some individuals, they might be first diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. And this is cognitive impairment that's not yet severe enough to impact daily life, but it's a little more severe than kind of the normal aging of the brain, the normal decline in our cognitive abilities. So people often with MCI live pretty independently, and about half of those that have MCI will develop some form of dementia. I mentioned Alzheimer's disease is the most common, but frontal temporal dementia is another type. I just talked about how the hallmark signs are generally kind of poor judgment, changes in personality and mood, issues with language. Vascular dementia is generally caused by a restricted blood flow to the brain. So sometimes we see that occur after a person has a stroke. Often alcoholics sometimes develop a type of dementia, such as vascular dementia. And then you can have a mix of different types of dementias as well, and we often see vascular mixed with other types of dementia. And then Lewy body dementia has hallmarks that include kind of movement issues, those tremors that I talked about, or hallucinations. And so we often see that paired Lewy body dementia paired with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's is another aging brain disease. It doesn't always impact a person's cognition, but the changes in the brain are usually impacting our motor abilities. And so, again, these are common aging brain diseases, but as we age, we're not guaranteed to have one of these aging brain diseases. And there's many lifestyle risk factors that can increase our risk. But if we, again, take kind of charge of our own brain health early on, there's a lot we can do to reduce our risk. So things like smoking, diet, which Jenny's going to dive deeper into, sitting too much, poor sleep, social isolation, excessive alcohol use, making sure you're managing medical conditions. We're seeing a lot of links between things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, obesity, depression. So again, we'll talk more about these in just a bit, but these are some factors that can decrease the risk of aging brain diseases. And what's exciting, and what I'm excited to learn about at the AAIC conference next month, is there is this worldwide network of studies focused on lifestyle interventions called the Worldwide Fingers Study. And it's a global network that is trying to discern what lifestyle factors make the most impact on our cognitive health. And so they're running a lot of clinical trials. There's one in the U.S. that the Alzheimer's Association is doing that is called the U.S. Pointer Study. And fingers and pointer are long acronyms. I won't take the time to go through them, but you can read more about them at the websites below. But I did just want to show you this map of all of these worldwide fingers studies happening. The ones in dark blue are ones that are ongoing studies, and then the light blue are in the pioneer stage. So you can see that again, these studies are happening, and they're trying to also figure out, are there cultural factors that also impact, the development of Alzheimer's disease or dementia? Because you may know that in Japan, there are the most kind of centenarians, people over the age of 100, in a small area of Japan, and often they have a reduced risk of dementia for whatever reason. So it makes me wonder, is it something about their lifestyle? And so there are studies happening in Asian countries and in South America and Africa and Europe and Australia that are, again, trying to figure out what are some of these lifestyle factors. And here are, if you go to the Fingers website, you can read more, but it really is starting to kind of conclude that these various activities, cognitive training, an active diet, physical exercise, vascular and metabolic monitoring, social activity, are impacting people's cognition. So, they're encouraging people in these trials to engage in these areas to kind of improve their lifestyle, live healthier, be more socially engaged, continue to learn as they age. And the results are I think, pretty incredible. 25% have had a positive impact on overall cognition, 40% positive impact on memory function, 150% positive impact on processing speed, 83% positive impact on executive function, 60% decrease in other chronic diseases. So not only is all of this good for our brain, but can also help reduce other chronic conditions and issues that we see commonly in our older years. So these studies are really interesting to kind of keep your pulse on these studies if you're somebody who is really interested in this. You can follow the websites and continue to learn as more results come out. But now I'm going to pass it over to Jenny, and she is going to dive deeper into these 5 pillars of wellness. So Jenny, feel free to take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Lakelyn, and thank everybody for joining us today. Earlier, Lakelyn, you mentioned some lifestyle risks, 3 of them being genes, which we can't control. We're given the genes that our parents gave us. Number 2 is environmental, and we're really limited on the control that we have with toxins in the air and other environmental risks. But when it comes to lifestyles, I feel that we have all the ability and control to delay any type of Alzheimer's and be passionate about 5 pillars of wellness and lifestyles that can help us both for the heart and for the brain. 2 things that scare me the most about Alzheimer's is that it is a progressive disease, number 1, and there's no cure. I'm passionate about these lifestyles because back in January of 2021, my mother passed away of Alzheimer's. And so just studying these lifestyles and knowing that there are things that I can control in my lifestyle really motivate me to live a healthy lifestyle and do all I can so I don't have to go through what she had gone through over the course of 13 years. So right now we're gonna talk about the 5 pillars of wellness and a couple of books that I did just want to have a shout out that I refer to and go back to time and time again for lifestyle and through the 5 pillars of wellness are the Keep Sharp, Build a Better Brain at Any Age by Dr. Sanjay Gupta and The New Rules of Aging Well by Dr. Frank Lipman and Danielle Claro. Both of those books are great resources if you want to read more and learn more about the 5 pillars of wellness. So we're going to dive right in and start with taking a look at the 5 pillars of wellness, which include exercise, nutrition, sleep and relaxation, social connection, purpose, and learning. So number 1, exercise. The pace of aging, physical inactivity has been calculated to be the most significant risk factor in cognitive decline and the development of dementia. Right now, American adults spend about half of their waking time, up to close to 8 hours a day, either seated, reclined, or lying down. After work and sitting all day, what do? We usually park ourselves in front of the TV for an evening. There's a growing number of us that now even work from home. And with many conveniences like online shopping, online banking, socializing, we hardly need to leave the comfort of our chairs. So physical inactivity has been calculated to be the most significant risk factor in cognitive decline and the development of dementia. Physical exercise can offer the greatest return on our investment in ourselves, and it's an antidote to many things that can play into your risk for decline. Exercise can also reduce risk of high blood pressure or diabetes, which both can increase the risk of dementia later in life. It appears to cause the brain to physically shrink while simultaneously increasing the risk of Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. When we're sedentary, our circulation slows down, more sugar is circulating throughout your body. Exercise is 100% effective, even in small doses. Exercise is a key to health, wellness, and longevity, and the best thing is it's free. You don't need anything but a good pair of shoes to take a walk outside and get some movement going in your day. The number one overall health is you're more likely to live a longer, healthy life and strengthen your immune system. When you exercise, you don't get as sick as often. You'll lower your medical costs. Americans spend more than $3 trillion on healthcare alone. When you exercise more, you sleep better at night. You become more restful. You sound sleep and you have a better day. Your work days are more productive. It increases your strength, your flexibility, and your overall energy throughout the day. And number 5, another reason to exercise, it risks of almost any chronic disease that would develop. You decrease inflammation and the risk for age-related diseases such as cancer and dementia. According to the CDC and prevention, 80% of Americans don't get enough exercise. About 23% of men and 18% of women will meet the recommended requirements. When you sit for a long period of time, which would be, say, more than 8 hours a day with zero activity, that can actually kill you or lead to an early death. But the good news is that it's never too late to start. Even a few minutes in motion will counter the effects of being inactive. One thing that is fantastic is walking. All you have to do, like I said, is grab a pair of shoes. You can walk inside. You can walk outside. Just move. The Centers of Disease and Control Prevention recommend all adults get 150 weekly minutes of moderately intense exercise, such as a brisk walk. That could be exercising for about 30 minutes, 5 times a week. And research suggests that exercise sessions of 45 to 60 minutes offer the biggest brain benefits. A body in motion stays in motion. So some things that we can do, as I mentioned earlier, is take a brisk walk. We all need a break during our day, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Get up and move. Jogging, if you want something a little bit quicker in your day and you want to get that heart rate up to a different level, then jog. Another easy way is taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Or something I've been challenging myself to do is not to look for that really close parking spot at the grocery store. Save yourself the time and park as far away as you can and get those extra steps in. Dr. Sanjay Gupta wrote in his book, Keep Sharp, when people ask me what's the single most important thing that they can do to enhance their brain's function from disease, and he answers with one word, and it's exercise. Fitness could be the most important ingredient to living as long as possible, despite all the other risk factors that Lakelyn talked about, age, genetics. And while it may seem hard to believe, exercise is the only behavioral activity scientifically proven to trigger biological effects that can help the brain. Get your body in motion and start exercising. I tell all my friends and coworkers it's never too late, and start today. It can significantly protect your brain. So how does exercise make you mentally sharper? It does so many things. And like I always say, what's good for your heart is good for your brain. When you exercise, you improve your digestion. You improve your metabolism. You improve your immune system. You improve your strength, and you improve your bone density. What isn't there that exercise doesn't do for you? It does so much. And one study I wanted to talk about was a 2018 study showed that more fit an older person was, the better chances he or she could recall words as compared to those who were less fit. Many of Dr. Gupta's colleagues like to say, exercise can act as a first aid kit for damaged brain cells, speeding up recovery after injury or stroke or significant emotional strength. Dr. Gupta also says, I don't know a single pill that can do that. So I guess my message is to get those shoes and get outside and start moving. Nutrition, food for thought, feeding your brain. Choose the right fuel for our bodies can also maintain our minds. A healthy diet pattern helps keep the blood vessels in the brain clear and flexible, which may reduce some forms of dementia. It also can help your your heart health, your body health, and your brain health. Knowing what to eat for good health can be bewildering. I know so many different diets out there, but really the immune system is intimately connected to the gut, the lungs, and the skin. If you're in a good place on your blood sugar, your blood pressure, and weight, that will help optimize the function of your immune system. Good eating for the brain. There's no single food acts as a silver bullet for improving or maintaining brain health. There's a diet called SHARP, where means S is for slash the sugar, hydrate smartly, add more omega-3s into your diet, healthy fat, helping in reducing cognitive decline, which means adding seafood, nuts, and seeds. Food source is the best way to obtain omega-3. Reduce your portions, gain control of your portion size and your calories, weigh your food out, measure it, prepare your meals at home. Something that's been a big challenge for me is to do that. I work 5 days a week, come into work, and I have a busy life like many of you. I find that Sundays is a great day for me to prepare my meals. I do my shopping, make my list, and really try to prepare 5 meals so I have them at home. And late at night at work, when I get home, that the fast food chains aren't screaming at me to stop by, because I know that I have some grilled chicken in the refrigerator along with some salads and some nuts and grains. So it's really important to prepare your meals at home, measure accurately, and don't go back for seconds. Stop, have a glass of water, see if that is going to reduce your appetite. And again, number P, plan ahead. As I said earlier, plan meals in advance. Go grocery shopping accordingly. Try to add fiber to your plate. Complete your plate with 3/4 of leafy greens. Something that we've done recently is use a smaller plate. Use a salad plate when it comes to your meals, and that way you put less on there. Add more oats and peas and beans and apples and nuts and green beans to your diet. Again, there's no single food that acts as a silver bullet for improving. Just start, again, trying to do some of these things to help you lead that lifestyle of a healthy diet. So progress over perfection, I love that. Everything is in moderation. Again, we could talk about exercise when it comes to moderation. We could talk about nutrition. We're all different, and an ideal way for you may differ than somebody else. So if you focus on what you should eat instead of what you shouldn't eat, you'll end up fueling your body with good calories and naturally avoiding the bad ones. I know we've all seen paleo diets, keto diets. One that I find that I think seems to be very manageable is the Mediterranean diet. And what they focus on is lowering risk of heart disease, risk of stroke, and greater brain volume. So if you're not familiar with that one, I suggest taking a look at what that entails, because I think everything, again, is in moderation and it's slow and steady, and you'll be able to maintain that quote unquote diet through a lifestyle. The third pillar I find so interesting is sleep, and it really has received a lot more attention because as we sleep, your brain really stays surprisingly busy, helping to solidify your memories for long-term storage. In addition, when you're asleep, your brain goes into a housekeeping mode and it cleans out all the toxins that can impair your brain health. So more and more research is being done on how important sleep is to your cognition. So ask yourself, how well did you sleep last night? 2/3 of the people are chronically sleep deprived. Chronic inadequate sleep puts people at a higher risk for not only dementia, but fall-related injuries, weight gain, heart disease, diabetes, memory problems, depression, and even cancer. 2/3 of us are chronically sleep deprived. That's tens of millions of us. The subject of sleep, as I mentioned, has produced lots of bad information, but people will tell you that they can get on, people that tell you, oh, I can get by with 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I don't think they really know what they're talking about. And if they do only get that amount of sleep, they're at a much higher risk for all sorts of those chronic diseases that I mentioned. Chronic inadequate sleep puts everybody at a higher risk of dementia. Just think about that. Next time you're up late and you have the TV on, or you're at your computer screen, turn that off and get to sleep. So why do we sleep? The purpose for a good sleep helps the body with recovery. Toxins are flushed out of the brain while we sleep, and the body has time to heal tissues during sleep. It helps consolidate and strengthen our memory, and it improves our learning. There's a myth out there that losing a little sleep isn't a big deal. You can catch up over the weekend. That is a myth. That is not true. You cannot catch up on your sleep. Sleep has a critical phase during which the body, again, replenishes itself in a variety of ways that ultimately affect every system of the brain, to the heart, to the immune system, and all inner workings of our metabolism. It's normal for sleep to change with our age, but poor quality sleep with age is not normal. So the top 10 secrets to slumber: prioritize that sleep and create a sleep hygiene routine. If you have any problems with sleep, here are some ways to help. Stick to a schedule and avoid long naps. So if your TV time at 9 o'clock, if you turn that TV off at 9 or that computer, get into that habit of doing that every night. Don't be a night owl. Don't stay up late and have your computer on or be working or watching TV. Turn all digital off and get to bed. Try to wake up the same time every morning and wake up early and get moving if you can. Tell yourself that, put your clothes out, get your shoes on, get dressed and get out and get moving. Start your day with a great brisk walk. Also, watch what you eat. Try not to eat after dinner, at least 5 days a week. If it's 7 o'clock and you're done with dinner, put everything away. Don't be tempted by, having a late night snack of potato chips. Put it away. A few other tips is mind your medicines. Have a cool, quiet, dark place. Eliminate any electronics, as I mentioned earlier. Establish bedtime rituals. We talked about this with our children. How many of us have kids and it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, time to get those kids ready for bed? It starts with a bath. It starts with a story, tucking them in. Do the same for yourself. Establish a routine that works for you. And know the warning signs. Again, those warning signs come with waking up too many times in the middle of the night, and not getting the established sleep that you do need. Social connection. I love this one. As socialization, we need social connection to thrive, especially when it comes to our brain health. Enjoy close ties with your friends and family, as well as participating in meaningful social activities. It may help keep your mind sharp and your memories strong. It's not just the number of social connections you have, but it's about the type of connections you have, the quality that you have, and the purpose of your relationships. Grow your tribe is what I like to say. Cultivating connection and spending time with people you love is a huge factor in aging well. Prioritize socializing now. I know with COVID, we talked a lot about isolation and how easy it was to isolate ourselves. So now it's time to prioritize socialization. Let your interests lead you, and you'll gradually end up finding kindred spirits. At this point in your life, isolation might not be a risk, but one of the reasons to build a strong, loving social structure around yourself now to ensure that it doesn't become an issue later. We're all wired to need some type of family, a tribe. Without that, studies show that we age quicker. Tips for staying socially engaged: focus again on that relationship and the activities that you enjoy. A lot of people will join, a church group, and they enjoy being social with their church friends. Others may join a gym and not only get exercise, but they'll also be socially engaged with the people at the gym. Make sure you connect regularly with relatives, friends, and neighbors. Let them know that you care about them. Phone call, a text, knock on their door and have a visit with them. Coffee on Saturdays. As I get older, my friends and I do that. We meet once a month on a Saturday for coffee, and it's just a time to reconnect. Look for opportunities that allow you to pass along your skills. So if you enjoy cooking or volunteering or tutoring, those are great opportunities that you can pass along to other people. Challenge yourself to get out, organize clubs, travel, and book clubs. Those are just other ways that you can socialize with others and share, how you're feeling and your interests with them. And last but not least, purpose, learning, and discovery. Keeping the brain plastic and engaging your brain in challenging ways improves the overall brain health. Some ways that we can do that is learning a new language, exploring the arts and learning more about music, painting, dancing, or sculpting. Another great way is just to work or to volunteer and help others out. Play various types of games and take a class at a community online course. The consequences of people retiring early, I wanted to mention too. I'm kind of jumping around here. I'll get back to that. Excuse me. Cognitive reserve is the brain's ability to impoverish and navigate around impediments it may encounter that could prevent it from getting a job done. So our cognitive reserve, when we educate ourselves, when we surround ourselves by social support, when we're positive, when we train our brain by learning maybe a new instrument or learning to play an instrument or learning a new language, we build our cognitive reserve. And again, that's our brain's ability to impoverish and navigate around impediments it may encounter down the road. So again, it's important to learn, it's important to grow and continue that learning throughout our lives. There is one project that Dr. Sanjay Gupta talks about in his books is searching the secrets to longevity for a project. His lesson was to delay retirement as long as possible. And when you do retire, don't quit on life. Find activities that are joyful and stimulating. Stay engaged with others. There's a power to maintaining a sense of purpose by continuing to learn, continuing to discover, and complete complex tasks. A sense of purpose means that you see your life as having meaning, a sense of direction, and goals to live for. It's active again. And that is all I have, Lakelyn.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for sharing about those 5 pillars of wellness. I felt a little convicted while you were speaking. I stood up, so I wasn't sitting
Oh,
here.
good. I know. I love my stand-up desk. And I did want to mention one thing. I know I mentioned a lot to take in, but I think no matter what pillar you're on, slow change is permanent change. So whether you want to start an exercise program, whether you want to start eating differently, getting more sleep, learning something new, become more social, do it small change. Know your why, know your what and your how. Celebrate your success and phase out old habits.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, I liked your one side that said progress over perfection. I think
I know.
Yeah, it's hard to, make a lot of big changes at once, but picking 1 or 2 things to focus on, again, the earlier we can do this, the more impact it will have. But even those that are maybe 65 and older or in their second half of life, these things can still make an impact on brain health. They sure can. And Jenny, I know that you mentioned 2 books that you really like, and I know on this resource page we have one of them. It was Keep Sharp, Build a Better Brain at Any Age by Sanjay Gupta. What was the other book that you had mentioned?
Yes, I love it. It's called The New Rules of Aging Well. And it's by Dr. New Rules of Aging Well by Dr. Frank Lipman, Lipman, and Danielle Claro. I think that's how you pronounce it, Claro. I've read it seriously 3 times because every section, if I have a question, I'm like, I'm going to my book. And it's just so amazing. And it's a really, really quick read, and it does cover so much. It just gives you a simple program for immune resilience, strength, and vitality. It's a fantastic book.
Awesome. Well, some other resources we have here on this slide. The Harvard School of Medicine puts out some great special reports around brain health. So if you download the slides, there's a hyperlink to where you can go for those various articles. Of course, the Alzheimer's Association is a great resource, as is Us Against Alzheimer's. And I know that Us Against Alzheimer's is partnering with ASA to do a multiple, I think it's like a 5-week series on brain health. So if this is a topic that's really interesting to you, I would encourage you to go to the ASA website to find out more about that webinar series, because I know that organization puts out such great content. Also, one of their tools is mybrainguide.org. which is a brain assessment tool. So if you are noticing cognitive impairment or maybe a little forgetfulness in yourself or a loved one, they have a tool on that website that you can go to find out more information, to kind of evaluate, okay, is this cause for concern? If so, what are some good next steps I can take? Also, the UCSF Memory and Aging Center has some great resources, as does the Cleveland Clinic. Homan said also partners with two other fantastic organizations. HFC has a Brain Universe, Brain Universe, and actor Seth Rogen will take you through the pillars of brain health with some experts in this area. So you can go to that website. Also, Women's Brain Health Initiative has some really, really great articles on their website that are backed by science, and they focus a lot on, what are the cognitive risk factors in women compared to men, and do they differ? Because, often, studies historically have focused mostly on, how do these impact men and women, and it kind of lumped it all together. But Women's Brain Health Initiative is really pushing for research to figure out how does the makeup of our bodies and our DNA impact our risk for cognitive impairment. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. I know there's some good questions coming in. And Patrice, I can just go ahead and field the questions if that's okay with you, unless you want to dive in as well.
No, Lakelyn, that is fine with me. If you and Jenny would like to moderate your own Q&A. I did try to keep track as you each were speaking, so I know which questions refer to which of you, but, I say dive right on in.
All right. Well, I'm seeing some themes come up, and Patrice, maybe you're seeing some themes too, but there's a lot of questions around alcohol use. Because we know we've mentioned that. I think that kind of goes back to everything in moderation. I've read several articles that say, one glass of red wine can actually daily or a few times a week can be good for your brain. While others say, extensive alcohol consumption is bad for your brain. So I think it's important to discuss with your healthcare provider if you have concerns about alcohol use with your own health. I think there's a lot of factors that go into play. There's not kind of a one-size-fits-all answer, but everything in moderation is important to kind of go back to. I know excessive alcohol use especially over a long period of time, can be damaging to the brain. Jenny, any other insights when it comes to alcohol use?
Yeah, that's definitely on a list. Alcohol was one of the 4 things that are hard on the brain, too much alcohol. And like you said, heavy drinking can kill the brain neurons, and it can accelerate memory loss. Research bears this out, and more than 14 weekly drinks was linked to brain damage with a higher dementia risk. It was a study once that I came across. So yes, small advice is no more than maybe 2 drinks a day for men, I've read, and no more than 1 for women. And to me, that's, if you can limit it to maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, I think is very, like you said, in moderation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that goes to a lot of these recommendations when it comes to kind of food and the nutritional guidelines. And of course, a healthy diet is important. And I know that there's a lot of studies out there that will say, like, coffee is good for your brain, or blueberries. And while there are some foods that, are rich in antioxidants, as you mentioned, there's not one single food that will be the cure-all cognitive. It really is, eating a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables and good fats, and trying to limit sugar and those sorts of things. So I know I'm not perfect, and if you would have saw what I ate over the weekend, the holiday weekend, you'd probably be appalled.
Oh, yes, very true. And I just try to get some salad in every meal. Just 1 cup of lettuce daily or a half cup of cooked dark leafy greens can delay age-related cognitive declines, say some researchers. So I think, just a cup of salad, that's doable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've gotten some an interesting question on sleep for those that kind of don't work a traditional work day, who maybe have to work a second or third shift. Obviously they might be challenged with a sleep schedule that's normal. I know a lot of my friends started out in their nursing careers did the night shift. And recently I was talking with a friend, she said, I gained a lot more weight because it was a different sleep schedule and I was eating at weird times. And so I don't know, Jenny, if you've come across anything. I know the UCLA Health website has a great resource called Coping with Shift Work. So you might want to Google UCLA Health, Coping with Shift Work. But Jenny, in what you have read and researched, anything for those that maybe have a schedule that can't accommodate, the normal life?
I know that's really hard, Lakelyn. There's some great tips and ideas in both the books that I referred. So I would refer to both of those. But, sometimes people think, I'm going to, sleep is overrated. It really isn't. I really have tried to incorporate that pillar into my life as a priority after exercise and nutrition. And it's really paid off. And it's just, no matter what your schedule is try to stick to that schedule and try to get those 7 hours of sleep. Sleep is anything but a waste of time. So whatever your schedule is, some people think, oh, you're crazy. You get up at 4:20, a.m. to go to exercise class. And I said, you know what? I get the same amount of hours of sleep as you. You just wake up at 6, a.m. and get to bed at 10. My schedule is 4:30 to 8:30, So I think you need to focus on the quality and the amount of hours that you're getting, not necessarily what time frame it is, but just make sleep a priority. And again, if you need more research, try going to both of those books with some additional resources to help you do that.
Yeah, and I love your suggestion of kind of creating a sleep routine or a sleep hygiene routine. And so even if you're going to bed at 9 p.m. or if you have to go to bed at 1 p.m. because you have to wake up and work a night shift, kind of creating that routine. At one point, I would always kind of make a cup of hot tea, like an herbal tea for myself, and read a little bit, and kind of that was my way to wind down. And I really found that kind of signaled to my brain, okay, we're getting ready for bed. This is kind of the routine. So I think no matter what time you're going to bed, kind of trying to create that routine. And I think also shutting off our screens and that kind of digital is so important. I even notice myself, if I watch TV while I'm trying to fall asleep, I never get as good a quality of sleep as if I turn it off at least 20 minutes before bed. So I think with a lot of things
those
too,
are great ideas.
As you mentioned, finding things that work for you. Finding exercise activities that you enjoy. If you don't like to jog, I hate jogging. I would much rather, lift some weights or go for a long walk or ride a bike. And I think, again, you just have to kind of find what works for you and your lifestyle. And I think, too, over the lifespan, you do kind of go through phases of life. People with young children, or when you get a new puppy, you might not be getting as much quality sleep as you would like to, but we over the lifetime, If you can kind of try to incorporate, if in this moment you're not able to get as much sleep as you really would love to because of your life circumstance, maybe you can focus on the exercise piece a little bit more, or the nutrition piece. It's all about kind of trying to find that balance.
Right. And I found too with exercise, add the socialization pillar with it. Call a friend, get a neighbor, find a partner to go with you. And then like my Saturdays are great with my friend. We go for a run and I catch up with her and we knock two birds with one stone. We get the exercise in and we catch up on what's going on in each other's lives. So it's a good combination to, pair up with someone and find a workout buddy, whether it's your partner, your spouse, a neighbor, a girlfriend, whoever it is. It's always easier, and for me, it's more enjoyable to do it with someone.
Absolutely.
Lakelyn and Jenny, we've actually reached the end of our hour, and it's time for us to wrap up. I know we have several more questions in the Q&A box, but this was really enlightening in terms of the modifiable risk factors that are within our control for our brain health. So I would like to thank both of you for joining us today and presenting such timely and relevant information. Thank you so much, Lakelyn and Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As Lakelyn mentioned, if you'd like to learn more about dementia and Alzheimer's risk reduction and steps to providing culturally competent care to high-risk patients, please join us for the first of 6 monthly webinars in the Brain Health Academy presented by Us Against Alzheimer's. The first webinar takes place 2 weeks from today on June the 15th. Also, if you'd like to claim continuing education units for today's webinar, you will be receiving a follow-up email by the end of the business day that will contain a link to the CEU application. That follow-up email will also contain a link to today's slides. And once again, as a reminder, you have 60 days to claim continuing education credits for today's webinar, and note that it will take 30 days from the date of your submission in order for ASA to process and issue your CEUs. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you, everyone.